Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a semi-new podcast in which we discuss Denver sporting news. We break down the games and we talk about what's to come for the teams we love, all through the lens of a bettor. This is the Denver Dollar, and I am your host, Daniel Shalansky. Without further ado, let's get to it. The Nuggets play tonight in a St. Patrick's Day matchup at home in the Ball Arena against the Charlotte Hornets, and that will be our topic of discussion tonight. The Nuggets are fairly hot despite their recent loss to the Dallas Mavericks. They've since made up for it in their win over the Indiana Pacers. Now, the Nuggets are still pretty banged up. It's not as bad as it's been in the past. They, recently had JaMychal Green come back and Paul Millsap come back, but they are still missing key players on their team. Those players include Gary Harris is still out with a thigh injury, Monte Morris is still out with a quadricep injury, and RJ Hampton is out with a knee injury. None of those guys will be available in this game today. On the Hornets side of the ball, they have no injuries listed, so they are playing full strength, and they have been hot as of late. So this is maybe more of a test than it would seem like at the beginning of the season. In fact, the Nuggets and the Hornets have the same record over the last 5 games. Both teams have won 4 out of their last 5 games. Both teams are hot, and both teams have been doing it with a little bit of offense, but mostly defense is what's impressive. Now, the Nuggets are allowing 110.4 points per game. That puts them at number 8 in the league, but they're only allowing 102.2 points per game over the last week, or over the last span of 5 games. The Hornets are kind of in the same boat. They're allowing 112.7, but their mark over the last 5 games is way different than it has been over the course of the season. They're only allowing 107 points in the span of the last 5 games. So over the last 5 games, the Nuggets have a point differential of plus 14. They're beating their opponents by 14 points on average over the last 5 games, and the Hornets are winning by 12.8. So again, that's just to highlight how hot both of these teams are. It will be a difficult matchup, definitely more difficult than we would have thought at the beginning of the season. Let's dive into the numbers. Now, the Nuggets are still big favorites in this game, and I like them to win, but I don't necessarily like the odds attached to them. So I'm avoiding the money line, and I'm even going to avoid the 3-way money line, but let me just read you what they are at. So the Nuggets in this game are listed at minus 250 if you want to take them to win, whereas the Hornets are listed at plus 205. The spread in this game is 6.5 points in favor of the Denver Nuggets, locked in at minus 110 if you want to bet on the Nuggets, and minus 110 if you bet on the Hornets in true pick'em fashion. Same odds for both of those. The over-under in this game is set at 229, and the under is locked in at minus 109, and I like the under. Despite the fact that both teams are scoring really well, if you take the combined averages of the team's scores over the last 5 games, you'd be locked in at 238. So that is well above this mark of 229, 238 that is. But both teams have been killing it on defense, so it'll be like a battle of good offenses versus good defenses both ways around. Now, in the last 5 games, the Nuggets have reached this combined point total of 229 points 0 times. The Hornets have achieved it 3 times. So the Hornets games have been relatively high scoring, whereas the Nuggets games have not. So I still like the under, but this is a true battle of offense versus defense. Both teams have good offenses as of late and good defenses as of late. Parlays I'm willing to take. I'm taking 2 parlays against the spread. I'm willing to bet that if the Nuggets win this game against a spread that is 6.5 points, and we know it's pretty lofty, then the over will hit because the Nuggets will have to score a ton of points, and the Hornets have a good enough offense that if the Nuggets are able to cover the spread, I like to think that the over will hit as well. However, I have the Hornets against the spread in tandem with the under. I do think that if it's a relatively close game, then each other's defenses will hold each other in check. I like those 2 parlays. Yes, they're completely contradicting, but according to the game scripts that I could see happening, I like the combination of those 2 bets, even though one of them, not both of them, is the maximum that can be achieved. For the 3-way money line, the Nuggets are locked in at minus 215, the Hornets are locked in at plus 230, and a tie through 4 quarters is locked in at plus 1400. I'm not touching any of that, but I would way rather take this bet than the normal money line, considering the fact that a tie only happens in approximately 1 out of 20 games. It's happened 30 times in a total of 594 NBA games this season, and it's only locked in at plus 1400. I would only look, even consider betting on a tie, betting on overtime, if that was locked in at plus 1,980. So I'm not going to touch that bet. We're next going to discuss individual player props. We have tons of players to talk about, and then we're going to finish the show with our tip-off analysis. So on to the Nuggets side of the ball. Before I discuss the Nuggets super heavily, I just want to say that I'm still not yet willing to bet on Jamal Murray. Ever since the bubble, the Nuggets have played 3 games, and he's been kind of wonky in all 3 of those games. Yes, he had 3 3-pointers and 16 points in the previous game against the Pacers, and that's, starting to return to normal Jamal Murray form. But it's still been weird for him. He's a very rhythmic player, and you saw in the bubble he achieved his maximum rhythm. He had been playing for a long time in a row, so he was able to succeed in the limelight. But after taking, almost a week off during the All-Star break, he's really lost his rhythm. He's starting to find it again. Until I'm confident that he is firing on all cylinders, I don't want to touch his bets because it could be any night that he returns to form, but I don't know when that will be. So that means we're now on to who's going to be starting at shooting guard for the Denver Nuggets, on to Will Barton. He's locked in at 2.5 3-pointers in this game, and I'm taking the over. In the last week, he's averaging 5 3-pointers. That's over the last 3 games. He's averaging 5 made 3-pointers per game, and in the last game, he made 5. So on the season, he's only averaging 1.8, and over the last 30 days, he's averaging 2.3. So based on those numbers, I would say the under, but just the way that that's been trending up and the way that he's been hitting his 3-pointers over the past week makes me absolutely want to bet on the over, and the value is ludicrous at plus 178. This is one of my favorite bets of the night. The value is too good, and it's something that I absolutely see happening. Because I'm betting that he's going to get a lot of 3-pointers, he's been scoring a ton as of late. I'm going to bet the over on points for Will Barton straight up. He's locked in at 14.5 points in this game. The over is set at minus 103, and I am absolutely willing to take that. Yes, he's only averaging 12.4 over the season, but it's trending up. He's averaging 14.2 over the last 30 days, 21.3 points over the last week, and he had 20 in the last game. He's scored 20 or more points in each of the last 3 games. I'm willing to bet that he scores at least 14.5 points in this game. Now on to Michael Porter Jr. Yeah, Mike. I'm taking the over on points, and that's the only one I'm willing to take for him. I used to think that he was obviously an athletic freak, and he could get to the rim anytime he wants, but he used to settle for the 3-pointers. I used to think that the strongest correlation of any NBA player on the Nuggets or any player on the Nuggets was if they're going to have a high-scoring game, they're going to shoot a lot of threes, and that only applies to Michael Porter Jr. because that is his favorite way in which he scores. But he's kind of breaking that mold. In the last game, he had 20 points with 0 made 3-pointers. So normally if I'm betting the over on points for Michael Porter Jr., I'd also bet the over on 3-pointers. But tonight, I am not so confident in doing that just because, for example, he had 20 points last night and 0 3-pointers. He's finding different ways to score, and he's evolving as a player. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm still taking the over at 16.5 points, locked in at minus 110 for the over. I love that. He's averaging only 15.3 on the season, but that's been trending up a ton. 16.5 over the last month, 21.3 over the last week, and 20 in the last game. He's really finding his rhythm again as a starter. Now, Paul Millsap has recently been added back to the starting rotation, and that means that BetRivers has added him to the betting card. Now, I'm only taking a few Paul Millsap bets here. I'm not so confident in what he will do because his minutes are very inconsistent. Matter of fact, he recently told Coach Malone after he saw the victory against the Pacers, he saw the chemistry that everyone else had on the court, during his absence, and he said, I'm happy to come off the bench. I'm happy to play whatever role I need for this team to achieve its best. He didn't say that verbatim, but that was kind of along the lines of what he said. And let's just say we thank our lucky stars every day for Paul Millsap, not because of what he does on the court, but because of the veteran presence he brings to the locker room and because of just what a team player he is. He's an absolute vet, and he's the type of guy that everyone needs to have on their team. So I'm taking the under on his points, locked in at 9.5, set at minus 103. Over the last week, he's only played 2 games, he's only played 3 games over the last week, and he's only played 3 games over the last month. So the disparity between his last month stats and his last week stats are zilch. They're the exact same. That said, he's only averaging 7.3 points over the last week. That's over 3 games. Yes, they're easing him back. There's a conditioning issue that comes along with, being absent for a very long time due to COVID. It takes only NBA games to get used to NBA game pace. That's an expression that they always say. So I expect them to still continue easing him back in, and considering those words he spoke to Coach Malone about, being able to be absent and take a break due to the fact that he's seen the success of the Nuggets as of late, I don't expect him to force his own on offense. I'm willing to bet that he gets under 9.5 points, and I don't dislike the value at minus 103. I'm going to bet the over on rebounds, however. When he plays in the paint on defense a lot of the time, even though on offense he does like to be around the perimeter. He's only locked in at 5.5 rebounds. Over the last week, he's secured 6 rebounds per game, and he had 7 in the last game. That means in 2 out of the 3 games that he's played, he has secured at least above this mark of 5.5 rebounds. It's locked in at minus 121. It's not the best of values, but it's absolutely something that I'm willing to take for Paul Millsap. Now, even though I'm taking the over on his rebounds, I'm going to take the under on his player special. That is combined points, assists, and rebounds. He's not going to get many assists. He's not going to get many points. Even if he does secure the over, I'm willing to bet that he gets less than 17.5 combined points, assists, and rebounds, locked in at minus 120. He only had 15 in the last game. He's averaging 14.6 over the course of this week. Now on to the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT himself, the modern day GOAT. They call him Big Honey. We call him Dad here in Denver. I'm talking about Nikola Jokic. I'm taking the over on his points, locked in at 26.5. Now, in the last game, he scored 32 points. Over the course of the week, he's averaging 28.7. And over the course of the month, he's averaging 28.7. He has absolutely been an animal. And against a high-scoring team that doesn't play great defense, yes, he loves to get his teammates involved. But against a team like this that the Nuggets will have to score at every turn to keep up with the high-paced Hornets, I'm absolutely willing that Nikola Jokic gets his own. I'm taking the over at 26.5, locked in at minus 110. I'm taking the under on his assists, however, locked in at 8.5. The under set at minus 110. The reason being, he only had 5 assists in the last game. He's averaging 7.7 over the course of the past week and 8.2 over the last month. Yes, he's averaging exactly 8.5 over the season, but that has been trending down significantly. And again, the Hornets are such a fast-paced team that Nikola Jokic will be able to get the ball so deep in the post without anyone questioning it, because there will be a lot of transition ball and they won't be able to set up on defense as much as they would like to. I do think that Nikola Jokic gets his own and isn't distributing as much as he has in the past. I will take the over on his rebounds, however. The man's got to get a double-double somehow, right? He's locked in at 10.5 rebounds, and the over is set at minus 130. Now, in the last game, he had 14 rebounds. Over the course of the last week, he's averaging 12.7 rebounds. So, I'm willing to bet the over. It's only locked in at minus 130, not the best of odds, but again, the man's got to get his double-double somehow. He's averaging a double-double, he's scoring a double-double in almost 90% of the games this season. That'll do it for the Nuggets. Let's discuss the Hornets side of the ball. The first player that we have to talk about is, the star rookie. He's, the leading case for Rookie of the Year this season. It's LaMelo Ball. The only bet that I'm willing to take for him, because his numbers are kind of all over the place. Some games he shines in the assists and rebounds category. Some games he scores like crazy and is just hitting the most ridiculous threes you've ever seen. The only thing that I'm actually comfortable betting on LaMelo Ball in this game is the over on rebounds, set at 5.5, locked in at minus 121. My reason for taking it is he's averaging 6 rebounds on the season, 5.6 rebounds over the last 30 days, and 6 over the past week. He only had 4 in the last game, which means that 2 out of 3 times this past week, he has secured at least 5.5 rebounds. So that's an easy bet for me. I'm taking the over. For the next player on the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to talk about Terry Rozier, and there are a bunch of overs that I like for him. He's a stellar player, and I think that Vegas has him all wrong. They have him locked in at 2.5 threes in this game. The over set at minus 152. So that's not great value attached to the over, especially for a player that is expected to make at least 3 threes in order for that bet to pay out. But if you look deeper at his numbers on the season, you would see that that's a good bet. He's averaging 3.4 3-pointers over the course of the season, 3.3 over the last month. He had 4 in the last game, and he's averaging 3.7 3-pointers made over the last week. He is scoring in bunches, and most of it is coming from beyond the arc. I'm absolutely willing to bet that he gets at least 2.5 3-pointers despite the odds of minus 152. I'm also willing to bet that he gets more than 18.5 points, locked in at minus 103. The reason being, he's shooting the ball like crazy. He's taken so many 3-pointers and he's making so many 3-pointers, and that is something that the Nuggets, have some difficulty defending. So they don't really switch the ball so well. If you looked at that Mavs game, there was one point where the announcers were getting all over them. It was Luka in a pick and roll with Tim Hardaway Jr. Everyone went to Tim Hardaway Jr., and PJ Dozier and Jamal Murray left Luka Doncic wide open. The announcers were saying, you have one player who is a good three-pointer, an excellent role player, but you have another player who's an MVP candidate. Why did both players gravitate towards the other dude? It's because the Nuggets suck at pick-and-roll defense, and that is what the Hornets like to do in order to get their three-pointers open, their three-point shooters open. So if Terry Rozier is going to be banging home those three-pointers, then I also expect him to be just scoring a lot of points. I'm taking the over on 18.5 points, again at minus 103. Over the course of the last week, he's averaging 20 points, and in the last game he had 26 points. He's averaging 20.1 over the last 30 days and 20.4 over the season. That is an easy bet for me to make. Because I'm willing to bet that he's getting the over on points, and I think he does it so handily, I'm not even going to look at what his assists and rebound stats are. I think he gets well above this mark of 18.5 points in this game, so I'm willing to bet that he gets at least 25.5 combined points, assists, and rebounds, and I think he gets close to that number alone just based off of his points. The over for 25.5 is locked in at minus 106. On to the next player. It's hard to argue who the actual star of the Hornets are. Obviously, LaMelo Ball is the flashiest. Terry Rozier is potentially the most consistent and hits the most clutch shots. But then some guy who's just so good all around is Gordon Hayward. His contract is looking like it's absolutely worth it. I love Gordon Hayward, and I'm taking the over on two separate bets for him, those being assists and rebounds. He's locked in at 3.5 assists in this game. He's averaging 3.9 on the season, 4.1 over the last 30 days, 4 over the last week, and he had 4 in the last game. So it's pretty easy to me to bet the over there, especially when the value isn't terrible at minus 124. I'm also betting the over on his rebounds at 5.5 rebounds in this game. He's locked in at plus 122 for the over, which is great value, especially considering the fact that I think he gets there. He's averaging 5.4 over the season and 5.4 over the last month, so he's right below that mark. But over the last week, he's been trending up. He's averaging 6 over the last week, and he had 8 in the last game. He had in the last 3 games, he's secured over this mark. He's secured at least 6 rebounds in 2 out of the last 3 games. I'm absolutely willing to bet that he hits the over, especially at the great value that is plus 122. On to PJ Washington. I'm betting the over on PJ Washington three-pointers, locked in at 1.5. He's set at plus 126 to secure the over, and this is another one of my favorite bets on the day. He's averaging 1.4 three-pointers over the course of the season, 2.2 over the last 30 days, and 2 in the last week. He had 2 three-pointers in the last game. So he's he's hovering around this mark of 2. He's only set at 1.5 here. So I do actually expect him to hit the over in this game. And you're getting way better value with the over at plus 126 versus the under that is minus 155. This is a bet that I absolutely have to take. Because I'm willing to take that, I'm also willing to take the over on his points. This is another bet by the same logic. Not quite as good of odds, but this is another bet that I feel like I have to take. He's averaging 12.6 points per game over the course of the season, and that is only trending up. He's averaging 15.9 over the last 30 days and 13.7 over the last week. He had a little bit of a rough showing, that being 10 points in the last game, but over the course of the week, he's played 3 games. In 2 of the 3 games, he's secured more than 11.5 points, and you're getting better value with the over at minus 103 versus minus 120 for the under. I'm willing to bet the over on that for PJ Washington. Now, my last player bet on the Charlotte Hornets is going to be Cody Zeller. I'm taking the over on his rebounds, locked in at 6.5, set at plus 108. He's averaging 7.6 over the course of the season. Yes, it's been trending down ever so slightly. He's averaging exactly 6.5 over the last 30 days. But in the last game, he had 7.7. In the last game, he had 9 rebounds. And over the course of the last week, he's averaging 7.7 rebounds. Sorry for that bumbling. So I absolutely expect him to get at least 6.5 rebounds. And again, you're getting better value with the over than the under. It is absolutely worth betting on. Now, before we do our tip-off analysis, which won't be as exciting today because the ultimate conclusion, spoiler alert, is going to be that I'm not willing to bet on who scores first in this game. But before we even cover why I'm going to come to that conclusion, I want to talk about why you have to bet on a Nikola Jokic double-double in pretty much every game. In this game, he's locked in at minus 305 to get a double-double. Now, that doesn't sound like great value, but considering the pace and the rate that he's been getting double-doubles at this season, It'd be a fool's errand not to take that bet. And let me tell you why. At minus 305, if those were the odds consistent at this, if the odds were consistent at this mark all season long, if I bet $100 on that every single night, I would be up $715. The reason being, he's hit this mark of a double-double in 35 out of 39 games. That's an 89.75% hit ratio. So he's hitting this every night. You might as well, this is better than a savings account. You might as well start putting $100 down every night on a Nikola Jokic double-double, because even when he doesn't get it, the times that he gets it so greatly outweigh the times he doesn't get it, that if over the course of the season, if you were to put $100 down every night, again, you would have made $715. That is up 18.3% of your initial investment of $3,900. Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely worth it. Start betting on the double-double every night until Vegas learns. I cannot stress it enough. On to tip-off analysis. It will be Nikola Jokic versus Cody Zeller, I do believe. I don't think it'll be Bismack Biyombo, but it is a little bit difficult to tell because over the course of the last 5 games, Cody Zeller has taken 3 of the tip-offs, Bismack Biyombo has taken 2 of the tip-offs. Now, it does make it slightly easier for me to predict who will take the tip-off, considering the fact that Zeller has taken the last 3. Now, of the last 3 that he's taken, he's lost all 3 of them. He only has a 6'11 wingspan as opposed to Nikola Jokic's 7'3 wingspan. I think Nikola Jokic will eat that tip-off for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think it won't even be close, and I think that he will take it so easily. But I'm not willing to bet that the Nuggets score first because the value attached to it is terrible at minus 162. They could very well miss, and then the Hornets go down and score. Weird shit like that is prone to happening, and I'm not going to bet on the Nuggets, even though I want to. I do think they score first. They're going to have the ball first, so they're going to have every opportunity to score first. I would normally bet on them to score first. The only reason I can't is due to the fact that the odds are so bad and weird stuff happens. I wouldn't take it unless it were closer to that mark of minus 100. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for the show. I will post all the bets that I'm taking on Instagram as I usually do. The link to this video will be on my Instagram. Don't forget to always scroll through that for the best Denver Nuggets betting advice. Once again, it's been a pleasure. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and until we see you next time.